Today is about hard truths about immigrating to Canada that no one's gonna tell you. And I'm gonna be honest, I felt a little weird doing this video because I didn't want to be negative, but there were some things that I thought were hard truths that I really wish I knew before I came to Canada, and I thought I'd just share them with you. Some of them are true for me, some of them might not be true for you, but they're things to be aware of. Let's go. Point number one is really tough. Kind of like a memory from when I was teen. I'd immigrated and I was talking a lot about being South African because I was like a couple of weeks into the country and really like feeling uprooted, which is a lot of what immigration feels like. And I was in high school and the one Canadian girl, Ashley, what a bee. She went and she said to me, oh my gosh, you talk about South Africa so much. You must be in love with being from that country. And I was like devastated when she said that because I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll not talk about it anymore. And you'll be like, wow, she wasn't very nice. So she was a mean high school girl. She was. But my point is, and this is something that, like, you know, high school people, maybe their brains aren't fully developed, so they just say things or they just get to be meaner. And as adults, maybe sometimes we'll not say some of those things because we're polite. But I'm gonna be honest, Canadians, in a good way and a bad way, they don't always really care where you're from. Yes, there are some Canadians who are delightful and they are friends and they're very curious about the country and they're curious individuals and I enjoy them very much. However, some Canadians just actually really don't care about where you're from. They'll like your accent, they want you to bring die boerewors to a potluck, but that's like, that's it. They wil nie verder gaan as dit nie. And that's a hard truth. You might want to share about your history and your interests, but because South Africa's history is hard and there is crime, there is poverty, there is rape, there is corruption. Yes, there's some of that stuff in Canada, but the level that there is, it kind of like doesn't compute for some Canadians. And it's not all. Like, there's some really great Canadians who are very curious and very interested, but there are some who just aren't. You kind of have to know when to filter and figure out who the person is and how much you share about certain aspects of South Africa. You are gonna have to redo your credentials. It's the wildest thing about immigration. You have to have credentials to get in the door, and they count for something through immigration point system. Anyway, when my parents did it, it counted at that point. And then you come here and they're like, actually, parts of your degree do not count. You're gonna have to redo them. And you're like, but I just got in because these accreditations. And I'm like, no, really, it's part of the Canadian education industry to have people redo credits. And I'm gonna be honest and just say that because, like, there is no reason why my dad, who has an education degree, like, has to redo English 101. Like, what? I get it. Like, you need to have a certain standard, and that's what Canada is trying to preserve. And you don't know, like, you can get some pretty shoddy degrees potentially. I personally think there's an industry of education in Canada, and that is just something that you're gonna have to probably face. And also, you're just continuous learning and education is a part of Canadian culture. You're always gonna be upgrading your skills in formal ways through universities or colleges or institutes, or in informal ways, always gonna be learning skills like on YouTube. This is such a weird one, but for some reason when I was writing down this list, I was like, yeah, South African fruit tastes better. It does, and it makes sense. You're living in a tropical paradise. Why wouldn't everything in the Ceres Valley just smaak so lekker? But because a lot of fruit is imported here, or you have to wait for the summer for it to come, it isn't always the nicest fruit, and it's a little bit sad. But I mean, there's interesting things to eat and things that are seasonal, and you can change your cooking skills and baking, so not all is lost. Very tiny minor point, actually. The next point, this is a tough one because I think people don't really talk about it, they kind of shrug it off. I think, quite frankly, the real estate market in Ontario, Toronto, and Vancouver, BC, in the Lower Mainland, because it's open to international markets and it's got a lot of foreign investments, I don't think as a South African, unless you're a super high earner and you have a lot of money and you can do whatever the heck you want, but if you're a regular person and you don't have a ton of financial resources, or you're not going to be like a highest earner in the world, I would stay out of those markets. I would really actually look at other parts of Canada. It's priced out at the real estate market, unless you're okay renting, which is totally fine, like for the rest of your life. But if you want to own a home and that's something that's important to you, it's crazy in the last 20 years, what has happened in the real estate market in BC and Ontario, especially Toronto region. Like, people are just, Canadians are leaving because they can't afford it. Imagine you coming from South Africa with 1/9, 1/10 of the resources. I mean, if you, again, high earner, you're gonna be fine anywhere. But if you're a regular person, I would seriously consider another province. Hence, it's Christy in Calgary. I grew up in BC. I moved out this way for opportunities. And I personally think it's one of the best provinces to immigrate to. Just putting it out there. Kind of related to one of the other points. South Africa doesn't register for a lot of people. Like, they know Nelson Mandela, they know Desmond Tutu, they know Trevor Noah, maybe they know about Elon Musk, but that's it. I don't think it's a mean thing, or I don't think it's a lack of general knowledge thing. I think it's just contextually. You don't maybe know when you first came to Canada, like, who Terry Fox is, because it doesn't register per se, and it's just contextual. That's all it is. So don't be offended by that, people not knowing much about South Africa, or the parts that they know are still stuck in like 1994. Yeah, just be okay with that and kind of smile it off. That's what I got used to. So one of the misgivings that I had about coming to Canada is that I honestly, and Canadians will hate this, I honestly thought of Canada as a version of America, and that is a mistake to say out loud to other Canadians, as well as understanding the society. During like the whole COVID situation and the many other scenarios in history, you'll start seeing the nuances very quickly about Canadians versus Americans. You're gonna find Americans are really focused on their freedoms to the nth degree. Canadians are for the most part a bit more community minded. And you'll be like, oh, what type of a big difference is that? I mean, with COVID, with Trump, all the stuff that happened, like, you will see the difference. I will be honest though, there's been some of that has flared up during lockdowns in Canada, which has been a bizarre thing. My first time in 20 years that I've seen this type of kind of meanness come, or somewhat mean, or a lack of kindness or caring about the community, or just like this me first mentality. It's the first time I kind of seen it, which was really surprising. But Canada is not America light. It's so different. The mindset's different. The tax system is different. The benefit system is way better in Canada. It breaks my heart because in America, moms only get 6 weeks paid off with their babies, and then they either have to like take unpaid leave or lose their job. Versus in Canada, you have 12 months paid, up to 18 months with 12 months benefits. That was a recent change. You can have even 18 months with your kid at home, which is just wonderful. But there are major differences between Canadian and American society, and do not assume that they are the same. Okay, thanks so much for joining me about some of the hard truths, and I'd love to know about if you're an immigrant and you are watching this video, if that resonated with you, or if you have other hard truths that you think I've missed. Kind of curious. Subscribe below. You're going to see that every Wednesday I post new content, and if you're curious about my day-to-day life, little bits and pieces and pictures, my Instagram handle is Christy in Calgary, and I would love to meet with you in Instagram land too. That would be lovely. Bye. Okay, today's video is about hard truths that Canadians, but they're things to be considerate of, and they're things to be aware of. Okay, it's crazy.